As we all know, Tarsier Studios, the creators of Little Nightmares, is venturing into uncharted waters with Reanimal, an upcoming horror game that can be played solo or with a friend, your dog, grandma, your boss, etc., etc. In Reanimal, you play as a brother and sister duo on a quest to rescue their 3 missing friends, and also exploring a mysterious island crawling with huge, violent creatures. It looks whimsical and terrifying all at the same time, much like Little Nightmares, but this time you don't face the darkness alone. You're scared together with a partner.
It's always being together as the 2 characters. And yeah, like Mer said from the beginning, like scared together. That was one of the pillars. And I feel like this camera is kind of essential to pulling that off.
This concept of scared together isn't just a catchy tagline, it's a staple of philosophy guiding Reanimal's development. In today's breakdown, we will be exploring everything that co-op and scared together means for Reanimal. From the very start, the Reanimal team knew they wanted co-op play to be more than just an added feature. It's a heart of the game.
This whole idea that we had one of our main pillars, as you like, has been being scared together. You know, that's how one of the filters that we judge our stuff through. Like, is this about being scared together, or does it kind of go against it?
Scared together as a guiding principle influences kind of everything, from story and level design to technical decisions like the camera system. The idea is simple but powerful. Horror can be a shared experience, and the game should be built around 2 players experiencing fear side by side, cooperating every step of the way. This philosophy apparently emerged early in development. The team experimented with different ways to present a co-op horror adventure and quickly discovered what did and did not work.
Because I'm a big couch fan, couch co-op is where it's at for me. But then a load of people love online. And then there's people who just want to do that together. So the fact that the tech team have managed to get all 3 boxes checked that front, I think is really, really nice.
Splitting the screen meant splitting the player's focus and physical presence, which went against the scared together ideal. Instead, the developers realized they needed a shared perspective that keeps both players literally on the same page, or rather the same screen, emphasizing they're in this together. This was a turning point because every design choice had to answer the question, does this keep players scared together? If not, I'm assuming it didn't make the cut. Building a horror game for 2 people meant rethinking many of the tricks that single-player horror games rely on. One of the biggest changes was the camera design. In classic horror games, fixed or limited cameras are often used to create tension and claustrophobia. In Reanimal, Tarsier decided to use a shared directed camera for both players at the same time. This type of single cinematic camera frames the action for both co-op players together rather than giving each player their own view. According to the devs, this camera can dynamically change to heighten the scares, and sometimes pulling back to give a foreboding wide shot, other times zooming in tight to make you feel trapped. In some situations, it stays and just pans out. You get a scenic view. In places, it just zooms in and creates this claustrophobia. The goal is to maximize tension and dread by controlling what both players see and don't see, just like a horror film director would. By keeping the perspective unified, the game ensures you and your friend witness the same frightening moments together, which can really amplify the impact, making you go, "Did you see that?" This directed camera approach is a direct result of the scared together philosophy. If one player could wander off with their own camera, the 2 of you might have a completely different experience, undermining the shared horror. Tarsier wanted co-op partners to feel inseparable, visually and emotionally. The environment and level design likely accommodate this by funneling the 2 characters to stick fairly close, even if exploring a creepy island full of branching paths. You might explore by boat or on foot, but you're doing it as a pair at all times. Essentially, Reanimal is choreographed so that co-op players are constantly sharing the tension. Another big change from Tarsier's previous games is the inclusion of character dialogue and communication. In Little Nightmares, the story was told entirely through environmental and action. The characters, like Six and Mono, never spoke. But in Reanimal, with two child characters working together, the developers have hinted there will be some form of dialogue or interaction between them. Dave Mervick, who leads the narrative, had to tackle this new challenge carefully.
It was an uphill struggle to even get the test done, because we had always made games with a don't talk, and I didn't want to just sort of leave it there.
And let's be honest, you and I both know Tarsier's horror style thrives on mystery and fan interpretation, so even with dialogue, they want to maintain a sense of ambiguity.
I just thought, well, maybe there's a way that we can do what we do with words as well, you know, how we use visuals and how we use context, all these different, how we kind of do our work and create our worlds. Surely there's an approach to dialogue that can fit within that as well. So I did a bunch of tests.
We can likely expect the characters to share little whispers or exclamations, especially to coordinate gameplay or react to scares, but not to over-explain the world. This is another example of how co-op play pushes Tarsier to make Reanimal special. You might hear the fear in your partner's voice or the determination as they call for help, which adds a new layer of immersion that solo games don't have. Mervick and the team are essentially adding a buddy dynamic into a horror narrative, but doing so in a subtle way that complements the eerie atmosphere rather than breaking it. Horror, traditionally, is a solitary affair. Think of playing a scary game alone in the dark, feeling utterly isolated. Adding a friend into the mix changes that equation profoundly. In fact, Dave Mervick himself was once cautious about co-op play in horror. Back when Little Nightmares 2 was announced, many fans assumed its two-character setup meant multiplayer, but Tarsier decided to keep it strictly single-player with an AI companion. At the time, Mervick explained that true co-op was off the table because we know what we want to do with the game and how we want people to feel, and co-op would just kill that. When you play Little Big Planet, you just mess around, and that would destroy the atmosphere we built up. But with Reanimal, Tarsier is confronting that challenge head-on and turning it into an opportunity. Rather than letting co-op ruin the atmosphere, they've built the entire game around co-op from the ground up. It's bound to happen that the players will fool around a bit when they're playing together, but that's also one of the charming elements of playing a horror game together, like watching a horror movie together. From a psychological perspective, this co-op approach introduces a fascinating dynamic: cooperative vulnerability. Alone, you're vulnerable because you have no other help, but together, you're vulnerable because you deeply care about your partner's fate as well. Tarsier is banking on players feeling a strong camaraderie with their co-op partner, be it a friend or an online stranger playing one of the orphans. For instance, hearing the fear in your friend's voice can in turn make you even more nervous, creating a feedback loop of escalating tension. And on the flip side, knowing someone has your back might embolden you to push forward where you're normally hesitant alone. And one question you might have is, won't having a buddy there make the game less scary over time? It's true that many co-op horror attempts in the past end up feeling more action-packed or goofy rather than truly frightening. While I am also worried about this, Tarsier seems well aware of this pitfall and are introducing specific design choices to keep the tension high. We've already discussed the clever camera work and the pacing of scares. Another likely innovation is in the gameplay mechanics and level scenarios themselves. It's one thing to solve a puzzle in a calm moment, but imagine doing it when a huge 12-armed lamb is coming after you. They want that classic experience of two friends side by side, shouting and clinging at each other as the game unfolds. It's horror as a social event. To maintain meaning and not devolve into utter chaos, the story and atmosphere of Reanimal will do a lot of the heavy lifting. And by making the environment itself intriguing and violent, as Mervick himself has said,
it morphed again, and then morphed again, and it just became about violence. I got to the core of it, and it was violence, and that's been my watchword every time. It's like, what do you think of this artwork? What do you think of this music? What do you think of this?
Tarsier ensures players remain invested in the setting, not just in messing around. Curiosity and dread go hand in hand. As you and your partner explore, you'll uncover creepy lore that keeps the tone serious. I just think Tarsier is conscious about not letting players break the game's immersion, One of the developers humorously noted that if co-op weren't done right, they'd be yelling at the players to stop ruining our game by doing it wrong. And as we've seen through Dave Mervick's insights and the Tarsier team's commentary, Reanimal is poised to contrast starkly with traditional solo horror by leveraging the power of cooperation. Their scared together philosophy touches every aspect of the game. A shared cinematic camera that keeps both players in the thick of the fear, gameplay mechanics that demand teamwork under duress, narrative elements that bind two characters and two players closely, and a careful balancing act to preserve tension even when you're joking around with a friend. This isn't the easy route. Making a horror game scary when players might be giggling or chatting is a huge challenge. But Tarsier's approach shows a lot of thoughtfulness and some bold innovation to meet that challenge. They've essentially turned what used to be a problem into a feature. And that is it for our deep dive into a very special pillar of Reanimal, Scared Together. What are your thoughts on playing a horror game like this with multiplayer? Also, if you like videos like this, I'm always doing deep dives into video game lore, so subscribe to the channel, comment, and hit the bell for notifications. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Peace.